the show, Tatiyana.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So you're sober too, right?
Yes.
What is your sober date?
My sober date is October 29th, 2018.
Lots of 2018s lately. I was April. So,
Really?
what was going on with you October 2018?
So I just had a baby, October 28th. So that is what started it all. And I honestly didn't think that I was even going to get sober. I didn't want to get sober. So it definitely all came unexpected.
So you were using through, and I pass no judgments here. You were using in the pregnancy.
Yes, I was. I used my entire pregnancy, and I actually got pregnant when I was in rehab and I was getting clean. That was my first. Um, I've never had a lot of clean time, so when I was in rehab, I had about 5 months clean and got pregnant on one of my passes, and I was on Vivitrol, and they took me off of Vivitrol and put me on Subutex, which automatically got me high. So it was off to the races after that.
I never understood that. Like, if you're on Vivitrol, then you're good. You're not gonna have any withdrawals. And then
Right.
to switch you to Subutex, it's like a death sentence because it's just gonna give you the itch again.
Right. Yep. And then you got to go through the withdrawals again too to get off of them.
Yeah, I mean, I knew somebody in rehab that actually was there for Suboxone.
Yeah.
They got clean a year before and then had to go back to get clean from the Suboxone.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. Sometimes it's worse than actual dope withdrawal. So
Yeah, that's what I mean. Well,
yeah.
let's rewind the clock. Where are you from?
I am from Mansfield, Ohio.
Another Ohio. I've had so many people from Ohio that we did like a panel thing with all these Ohio girls.
Yeah.
Like we've
It's
had a
rough.
couple from Columbus. We've had Tiffin, that area. We've had a couple. It's just there's so many people from Ohio that I'm like
Yeah.
it's an epidemic out there.
It is. It is. It's pretty bad here. It really is.
So you grew up there. What was it like growing up? Like both your parents around, or
I did not have my dad around. I had my mother and my grandmother. And according to my dad, he felt like as a child it was my responsibility to reach out to him and make contact with him. So um, that I guess it goes. I have more on that as I gotten older because I've had to let him know how that made me feel, how that's not okay. And he tries to take it into with my kids. And I am on a journey of breaking generational curses. So I will not allow him to do that with my kids. So we've had that talk and nothing has changed. So I've had to create boundaries. But it was just me, my mom, my grandmother. I have two little sisters, but my youngest sister is actually 13 days younger than my oldest son. So she didn't come into the picture until later.
yeah,
It's
any addiction around? Like, did you see any addiction growing up?
my mom drank a lot and she would drag us out to like her friends' houses where they would party at, and me and their kids and my sister would be in a room, and I hated it there because first of all I felt like it was gross, and when you're locked in the room and you're little and you hear all that commotion out there, you don't know what's happening. Is your mother okay? And it just always upsetted me. I couldn't stand it. So that was that in the beginning. Um, as far as my father, I finally learned that he was addicted to crack cocaine. And I went my whole life not knowing that because I always got so aggravated with where did my addiction traits come from? Where did my addictive personality come from? But So I got that answer a couple years ago. Um,
Was it kind of a revelation when you found that out? Like you almost not bonded over it with him, but like you could understand him more, and the reason he pushed away,
right.
you understand the fact, oh, he was an addict too.
Yes, it definitely it allowed me to give him more understanding because I mean, I went through addiction with kids too, and I wasn't consistent neither when that was happening. So it definitely helped me understand that it wasn't me like I thought it was all these years. Because I would get upset, and it really impacted me because he had another family, he had more kids, and he took care of them. He was in their lives, and then after they separated, he had more kids and got married again, and he took care of them. And I'm just like, well, how come it was never me? What was wrong with me that you couldn't be there for me? So,
I
but
mean,
when I was growing up, he was on drugs. So
yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense that you would be that upset. I mean, because if he's running off starting all these families, you're like, hey, I'm still your family. What is it going on with me?
yeah.
How far away did he start all these new families? Was it in the same town?
No, the first time was in Indiana, and then yeah, the second one was in town. um, I just I so with my story, there's a lot to unpack, but I try to like think of key points, which even before this, I made a bunch of key points. I'm like, oh, I'll just make this easier and do key points. And started being pages after pages. I'm like, well, this isn't going to get done. So,
It turns into step work at that point.
yeah. So I'm like, I'm trying to think of what would be important to tell. I know it all started with, being drug out to party houses with my mother. And then, I remember vividly, I have an uncle, and I don't know what his malfunction was back then, but like he beat up my mom one time in front of me, and my grandma was sitting at the table. And I remember him knocking my grandma over in the chair over on top of me, and my grandma getting up and beating him with a bat, like just stuff like that. And as I got older, because of like the type of violence and fighting that I've seen, I turned into that. And honestly, I just want to say that now that I look back at some of the things that I've done that I didn't get in trouble for, or that could have been so much worse, like God has really been on my side heavily and for a really long time. Because there is no way that I shouldn't be buried under a prison somewhere. But
So
um,
in all that chaos and all that angst that you felt, when was the first time you drank or used? Did you drink first or use first?
I drank first. So I deal with a lot of SA from five and from family members. I had a best friend that was older than me. She held me down while another boy had his way with me. My mom had a boyfriend that groomed me for a while. And, at 12, I lost my virginity, and it was only because I was scared. And
Well, who
I'm
was at five? Five's a young. Like I've had, I would say a handful of people that have said that at that early. I think the earliest I've heard was three, and then
mm,
I've heard a few different people say five. Who was it at five? Because that has to be somebody close to you to be able to get to you.
it was a cousin. I would go over there. Well, me, my mom, and sister would go over there a lot. And one day they just decided that they were going to force me to perform oral sex on them. And Um, I remember though, after that happened, when I got older, I remember like messing with him. Like I would crawl around the corner and I'd be like, I remember. And then I'd crawl back, and then I'd crawl back when you tried to. And then I'd crawl back towards him, make me put my mouth on your pee pee. And and he turned bloodshot red. And I don't, when you look at it now, it's like, I wonder if they ever think about things like that, or have they done that to anybody else, or who else did they do that to? How do they feel now? Because now they have a family, they have a daughter, they have a son. You know, I met their wife recently, and it's just like, do you bring it up? Do you let it go? Do you know who you married? Um, but um, sorry, I'm off topic. So yeah.
No, it's not off topic at all. Like a lot of this has to do with why we self-medicate.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that's a ton of trauma that you go through as a child. A lot of majority of children do not have to have that kind of trauma in their life. You know what I mean? They don't know any of that. So it's not off topic whatsoever, in my opinion. I think
Yeah.
it's really on Brandon or really on topic because it answers questions of later on of like how old were you when you took your first, because you're growing up around parties. Do you ever
Hmm.
sneak out and like take a first drink? What was your first drink when like
Mm, that's a hard one. I think honestly, my first drink wasn't until, so I had my first son at 16, and then it was when I was with my second baby father that I started drinking and partying because I wanted to keep up. He was a drunk, constantly in the bars. And at this time, I'm only like 16, 17. So I'm in the bar all the time. And I got pregnant, and I thought, justifying drinking hard wine was okay because it's wine. And so I'm drinking while I'm pregnant. Um, he was beating on me as well. So he's cheating on me in the same house that I'm in. And it just, I don't
how,
know. I
how
just,
much older is he? Because like you're 16. How much older was he?
he was actually the same age as me. My story consists of boys, men. I felt like sex meant love. And like I had, by time I hit, I guess by the time I had my first son, I had racked up a body count because my first son's dad, who took my virginity, told me, would bring me over his house and say, "Hey, if you have sex with this guy, which is his friend, then that means you love me." So I go and do it. And after I do it, he'll be like, "Well, you don't really love me because why would you do that?" And he kept doing that to me. And this is a prime example of why kids have no business having sex. Because you don't, what are you doing? So, or I have a bad habit of thinking that in order to get over this guy, I need to bounce to another instead of just letting myself heal and worrying about me and what I need to be doing. So,
So you're 17. You discover alcohol and wine. That I feel like wine is a different drunk than hard liquor and beer. You get different kinds of buzzed and drunk depending.
yeah,
And wine you think is safe, but really it's one of those worst ones. Like
right.
I hate the culture of wine time and the moms who brag that they're drinking wine at night
Yeah.
because they make it more acceptable to like be drunk around your kids because it's 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And I hate that wine culture that's going on still to this day because they don't realize how they're impacting their children to think that shit, there's like t-shirts, there's hats, there's posters, there's whatever saying wine time. They're promoting,
Yeah.
and it blows my mind that people can just be like that acceptable when alcohol, I mean, alcohol is a drug, period. They say in the literature. You know what I mean? In NA, alcohol is a drug, period. It's
It
right.
is.
So, I mean, because I started drinking at 11. And then when do you start? Because, like, I started drinking at 11 because I was just curious.
Mhm.
By 12, I had lost somebody that was relatively close to me. And then I thought, oh, I know how to fix this. I'll get drunk and I'll feel better. So
Mhm.
at 12, I started drinking alcoholically. And as you know, just because I wasn't drinking every night didn't mean I wasn't an alcoholic. When
Right.
I drank, it was to take away the bad feelings, the bullying, and all that kind of stuff that I was going under. Because I'm a big guy, and I was
Hmm.
big back then, so I got bullied a lot. So drinking, you feel better, and you don't have to worry about your problems. So I started drinking alcoholically at 12. When do you start self-medicating with alcohol?
Um, Honestly, I think 17, 18 would be it because at that point I was just him hitting me, him cheating on me, and me giving him my all was just really starting to get. Matter of fact, no, I take that back. I was 14 because at that time I was messing with a guy that was 30 some years old, and that was I was going through the motions of him starting to, I guess,
Was he
coast away.
was he grooming you too?
Oh yeah, I mean, he at first, yes, he was until he was getting what he wanted, and then I started doing crazy stuff, riding my bike from Ontario to Mansfield, freaking in the biggest winter storm we had to because he's not picking up the phone or why is he not want to hang out with me this weekend and this whole time he's had a family and so I just remember that breaking my heart and trying to get through that. I've been groomed by a lot of people, like even in my addiction I've had uncles that took advantage of me. Like I have a hard time with trusting people because of what my family has done.
Now, did you look older as a kid?
Yes.
Okay, because I was just curious. Like, you have all these people that are like fucking with you and getting in your head. And for people that don't know what grooming is, it's when an older guy basically will start teaching the woman or the girl, because you're a girl at this point, what they want from you so that when they're ready to abuse you, you're trained in your mind to respond. It's almost like a trauma response
Yeah.
where like it automatically you're like, oh, I know what to do here, but really you don't know what to do there. It's what they wanted you to think that way. They wanted you to feel that way. So to have all those different people grooming you, that's a tough way to go.
Yeah.
Um, so now you're like 18 and you're really getting drunk. Uh,
Hmm.
when did you discover drugs? Or
Um,
how did you discover drugs too?
so I had gotten back with a boy that I was with when I was younger, and he was selling drugs. And I would hold them for him and or sell them for him. And I remember trying them. Well, it started off with cocaine, and I remember sitting there. I was scared. I didn't want to do it. He kept pressuring me and pressuring me. Now, this was the same guy that has shot a gun off in the house multiple times. He almost caused me to kill my child because of him choking me out on top of our newborn baby. This guy has put a gun in my mouth and pulled the trigger in front of my kids. It's just, I so I did it, and it was the best feeling I've ever felt. The cocaine, the high, the ups. And when we did that, that's when he was so lovable towards me while he was up. But once you got to come back down. And once the high is going away, then, we're right back at each other's necks. And so I know at one point we tried heroin twice. It was the worst thing I ever felt in my life. I'm like, why would anybody like doing this? This is terrible. It did nothing but make me sick, and it was horrible in my eyes. So once I realized that I just had my daughter, and I'm in a hotel room by myself while he's out, just cheating, running the streets and this and that. And I'm in the hotel room with the drugs. So I tried again, the heroin, and this time it was different. Now, meanwhile, I've been on tramadol and other things because of the concussions he's given me. And the way it would make me numb, I like that. So when I tried the heroin this time, I'm in the hotel room and I don't care what he's doing. I don't know what made it feel so different that time. I think it was because of my emotional and mental state at that point, because from there on out, I just had to have it. I didn't care what he was doing. I didn't care what you did to me. I don't even care if you come back here. Like, I don't care. And I love that.
Would
I
you
love that.
snort it at first? Were you snorting it because you knew how to shoot it?
Yes.
That's what I figured. I hate to say it's a safer way,
Yeah.
but it's the most logical that you would have snorted it first, basically, because you're coming from cocaine to heroin.
Right.
Um, did you start speedballing real quick too, where you would do one and the other?
Mm, I guess now, looking back, that's what it would be. But back then, I thought I was just doing what I had available.
Yeah,
But with him being a drug dealer, I mean, they're going to both be available. So,
yeah. So you're constantly, and he's always out running around, like you said. So you have the newborn, and you're living out of a motel
yeah,
and getting high all the time. Where's your other son at this point?
with my mother.
Just you weren't able, so or she didn't. How that happened?
My mom and me have always been really close, and her motto while I was out there, on my stretch of active addiction was her taking my kids from me was not going to help me want to get better. She was amazing. I mean, yeah, sometimes she enabled me a little too much, but I honestly don't think that if I didn't have her that I would ever got through my addiction. I have 4 kids in total. So I had my daughter, which my 2 middle kids, I had my daughter and then my middle son in the same year.
Irish twins.
Yeah, if that tells you anything. Just unsafe practices all the way around.
Was that from the same guy that would beat you too?
No, no. So my middle son is from they all beat me, but this guy did me the worst. But my middle son is by him. So I got back with him when I was pregnant with my daughter. Because, like I said, I wouldn't wait. I couldn't let one guy go unless I had another guy to preoccupy my mind and my time.
Because you were codependent.
Yes.
That makes sense. Now, how was it worse with the third guy than that guy? Because I mean, that guy was giving you concussions. Did they ever ask questions at the hospital?
So the guy that was giving me concussions was him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um, do they ever say anything at the hospital? Like, I feel like they would have to ask these questions, like, what happened? How, like, did you get hurt? Are you safe? Like, was anything asked or like, this is back? What? How old are you?
I am going to be 30 in December.
Okay, so this was early 2000s when all this is going on.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um, there's been times like I don't remember what they said at the hospital, but I do know like at one point, I came home and there was something told me to go drop the baby off to my mom's because something didn't seem right. And after I did that and I went to the house because I just got back home from visiting his mom, letting his mom see the baby. He's sitting in the house in the dark waiting for me. And I remember he like knocked me down the steps when I asked him if he's cheating on me. I ran up to the room upstairs to hide and we start fighting, but we had a TV on the floor that I was getting rid of and I tripped over it and I fell into the closet and well, I fell in front of the closet and the way he kicked me and beat me to the point that my body was just jerking into the closet, it took the neighbors to call the police because they said it sounded like I was coming through their window, their wall, and the way my face and body was leaking blood, I answered the door, and even still, I try to tell them, "Oh, he didn't do anything. I fell." Or the time where I had to throw when he almost hurt the baby by hurting me, having me on top of the baby, choking me. I always would make excuses, and the cops would be like, "Well, he's got a warrant anyway, so he's going. I don't care what you say." Or it's just, I always made excuses because I didn't want to be alone.
that makes sense. So the time he was like hitting you in the closet, you weren't pregnant or you were?
I wasn't.
Okay, that's good at least. I mean, even not to say, that's good.
I get it. I know
But
what you.
yeah, like it's good that he actually wouldn't do it when you were like he would still hit you when you were pregnant.
If it wasn't one guy, it was another. I think every pregnancy I was getting beat on by a boyfriend, and it's just like it feels like it all just waters into one big blur because like I just move so fast in between people or
No,
okay.
I know he sold drugs, but did he do the drugs he sold too?
Yes. He that's what made me start doing it because he was doing it. So then he was trying to get me to do it, and I finally did. And yeah.
So now you're like 20, but you got sober at 25. So what happened between those years?
So I ended up getting deeper into it. I started using a needle. Um, then I ended up in the hospital for a while because I had blood clots in my lungs. Um, I also, in between there, caught myself on fire. So that caused a relapse because I've tried, I think, every addict has tried multiple times to get clean. And
On your own.
I'm sorry.
You were saying you were trying to get clean on your own.
No, I was going to a treatment center, like outpatient, and I ended up getting burnt. And the agony and pain, because I had third-degree burns from a grease fire, and I just couldn't get any sleep. Like it just constantly felt like I was on fire for weeks. And finally I broke down and relapsed, and like after that it was like a relief. Like I finally get to sleep. I finally not in pain.
This podcast is also sponsored by BetterHelp. If you are looking for therapy and not able to get something right away locally, you can do that with them. Within 48 hours, you can find a therapist to get on telehealth with you. I mean, I haven't heard anything but great things from people that have already done it, that watch my show or listen to my show. If you're looking to get 10% off your first month, you can go to betterhelp.com/MJsPNPMCA. That is betterhelp.com/MJsPNPMCA.
So so that happened, and then I got to a point where I remember like sitting on my mom's porch, and I didn't have any money for any drugs. I didn't feel the greatest. At this point, I'm used to covering up all these emotions that I've been going through. And I'm just like, all this money circulating out here. How do I get my hands on some? I remember it vividly. And so my mom lived in Ashland at the time. And, Mansfield was the go to spot for drugs. So I ended up, at first, I started making like ads online to, prostitute. And that ended up turning into me being on the streets, walking the streets, prostituting. And like, looking back again, like I said, God was with me because there is so many situations that I should have been dead, left for dead. I mean, even overdosing. I've overdosed on my own with nobody else around, or people have left me. And somehow I come back to no brain damage, no nothing. I mean, I'm scarred up from people sticking cigarette butts out on my leg while I'm overdosing. I even have a huge one from somebody sticking one of those huge lighters that they heated up on my leg. They actually put a hole through my leg doing that.
Who's they?
People that I was around while using.
Okay, so you surrounded yourself with other prostitutes or just around, like, because from what I heard is usually you travel in groups so you can watch each other's backs.
Um, so yeah, a lot of times I was around other prostitutes, but I had one main girl that she was like my sister from the beginning to the end. Like we were like this. We looked out for each other. We made money with each other. We even fought each other. I mean, that's just, but we were always like this, no matter what. And she, but sometimes, I mean, we would go our separate ways for a while. I mean, that's just how the cookie crumbles when you're on a hunt for what you're on a hunt for. And
It's
she,
wild. I mean, like I've heard of, you know what's crazy? I had two girls on that I met through like Facebook groups, and
Mhm.
they used to run together, and they hadn't seen each other since. And we did an episode with both of them together where they both could meet up again and talk, and
That's
it was
awesome.
really cool. But I've also heard of a girl, you know, prostitution's legal in Canada.
Oh,
Uh, However, being a pimp or trafficking is not legal. They crack down hard on that. They crack down so hard that this girl and her friend, they would take each other to meet up with people so they could watch each other's backs. They
yeah.
both got charged with sex trafficking because they were driving each other to these things.
Wow.
Like,
that's that's different.
yeah, that. I was blown away when I heard. I'm like, wait a minute, what?
I see. I actually was a part of. They did a prostitution ring bust, and I got arrested in that. At one point, there I was being trafficked, and all my money being taken, and I finally took the opportunity I could and ran. But now, like, I have a lawsuit going. Can't talk too much about it, but like there is a lawsuit that was brought up, and like we're dealing with that. But um yeah, I have a few prostitution charges, and when it comes to the girl that I hung with, like I remember she had her baby. She had a baby, and her baby was withdrawing, and so we said, okay, well, if the baby has to go through it, then we're going to go through it too. And so I'm laying there the next day, and I'm full well expecting to go through this. And she had somebody call her that wanted some drugs, and obviously she couldn't leave. So she's like telling me to do it, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. We're supposed to be getting clean. And she gets mad, throws a fit. So finally, I just go. I have never met these girls in my life. It was a mom and daughter. I take them to get the drugs, and instead of them dropping me back off, they pull over in this abandoned house and go to use. I'm sitting in the back, and I'm talking, and the one girl doesn't answer me. I see her head going down, and I'm tapping her. I'm like, hey, hey, and I see that she's turning blue. So it's the mom. So I tap the daughter. I'm like, get your mom. You need to get your mom. And she's not answering me either. So I get out the car and I look, and they're both blue. So now I'm panicking. I'm like, oh my God, they're both dying. So there was a guy that was riding a bike. I'm like, can you help me? Can you please help me? I was walking past here and I seen them in the car and they're dying. So he helps me and I pull them out and I'm trying to give them CPR. And, everybody to this day is like, why didn't you just leave after you called 911? Well, because I had to make sure that they didn't die. I had to know that they were okay. Well, the cop was about to let me leave, but apparently, because I guess my address in Ashland was right around the corner from them. They're like, we find it funny that you say you don't know them, but your addresses are right around the corner, in the next town over. How does that work? I'm like, I know this sounds crazy, but I really do not know them. I just met them today. So, on my behalf, when all that happened, I like picked up the paraphernalia and I hid it in my purse. And I obviously had drugs on me because a part of the deal of taking them to get drugs was, bringing some back for me and my sister. And I went to jail for possession and tampering with evidence. And don't you know, those girls turned around and said, because they got a citation for it. That's it. They called me a snitch for calling 911. Like, that's how it hurt. I'm like, well, you know what? I got a whole felony to save your guys' life. And you're going to call me a snitch for a citation?
It's a shame Narcan wasn't as easily available 10 years ago as it, because Narcan now, if you're on the streets, a lot of people have Narcan, and
Right.
it's passed out. People go, like, I'm from the Philly area.
Yeah.
I'm originally, and everyone's heard of like Kensington and Philly. It's an open air like drug market, and Narcan is just handed out to everybody that's there just to be on the safe side, because it you're going to use, not
Right.
you, but if you're living on the streets in Kensington, it's because you're using, and
Yeah.
you're standing and your body is halfway hanging over because you're so high.
Right.
So a lot of people will go down there and pass out Narcan. So at least it helps with the overdoses, so you don't have to call the cops. You can at least Narcan somebody.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing in these days, because 10 years ago you were a fucking snitch.
Right. Like, I think I would have saved myself a charge if they had that available back then. Even with me, because, like I said, I've overdosed more times than I can even count anymore. Like, it's ridiculous.
And you were overdosing alone.
Yeah, I know there was two times that I've overdosed around somebody and they either took me to the hospital or they called 911. But other than that, other people left me, stole my drugs, stole my money, burned me, like had their way with me. And it was just,
So now you get pregnant for your fourth son. Was that somebody you were dating?
um, I wasn't really dating them. It was just like a fling. I have a question.
I have an answer.
It's not podcast related, so you can cut it out. But am I allowed to vape on this, or will you cut it out? Or
No, you're good.
okay,
Good to vape.
okay,
Yeah, no, you're fine. If I could smoke cigarettes inside, I would be smoking right now during this.
okay.
So yeah, you're allowed to vape. Um, so now you're pregnant again for the fourth time, but that guy was just like a fling, where it wasn't anything that, you know, that is serious.
Right.
So he wasn't sticking around, was he?
Um, I mean, I wouldn't allow him to, because now, like, I'm back on the streets, and when I'm using, I just don't want to be held down or tied down by anybody. So,
Yeah, because everybody that actually you thought, it's almost like a trauma response to push away, because you've been so fucked up. Not you gotten fucked over so many times by so many people. Your trauma response is to go, no, I can't be with you. I shouldn't be with you. I don't want to be with you.
right.
That's
And it's just hard because I have a lot of trust issues. So, like, I don't trust you. Why am I going to waste my time on you? Either you give me money or rides or supply something for me, or you get away from me. Like, that's just how
yeah.
I want it.
So why is it different? Like, you try getting clean a bunch of times on your own. Now you're 25. And I know you had your fourth kid, but to me that's not like a reason for you to stay sober, because not that you didn't learn your lesson on the first three, but
Mhm.
you know what I mean, like the first three didn't stop you either. What do you think really clicked to really want to on this time 2018?
Because at this point I was all right, I was hitting my rock bottom and I've been, making plans, in addiction you make plans when you're high, but then when you're withdrawing, it's like, fuck that. I was lying. But I really just was sad. I was lonely. I was just tired. I've hurt myself. Like I jumped out of a third story window to get away from POs because I had a warrant out for escape. And I'm walking down the street naked with blood all down me. And it's like a trick picks me up like that and they tell me that they find it attractive. Like, I'm just tired of weird shit. I got tired of being lonely. I just got tired of this life I was living and I knew I was going to die. And honestly, I had my baby a month early, exactly, because I kept telling myself, well, when it gets a little bit closer, then I'll start getting clean. So what clicked was like when I had him. So I had just got done making money, and when I jump out of the truck, I start having contractions. And I'm like, well, I'm not really sick because usually when you're withdrawing, when you're pregnant, you start contracting. And I'm like, I'm not really sick, so I'm not sure why, I'm contracting, but I'll go in here and do these drugs. My sister's in there, and I and mind you, in my addiction, I went back and forth. Like I would shoot up so much that my veins stopped working, so then I'd go back to snorting it. It's gotten so bad that, my neck is scarred from shooting up. I even started doing it in my forehead. It was terrible. But so I did it, and I was still contracting pretty bad. And I called my mom. I'm like, I think it's time. She comes and picks me up, takes me to the hospital. My sister goes up there with me too. And while I'm in labor, because I couldn't get an epidural, she's shooting me up with drugs. And so I have him, and I don't even want to hold him because, like, I have so much on my mind. I'm like, I know Children's Services is coming. I might as well not even get attached to this baby because, like, he's gonna be taken away from me, and I'm not done using. Like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to stay sober and take care of him? Like, I have fucked over every treatment center around here repeatedly. They're not going to take me back. So, what am I going to do? And um, so I told them that I haven't been using. The last time I used was days ago, but they knew better than that. And he ended up having to be on a feeding tube. He had an IV and a breathing tube. Um, and he had to be under a blue light. I remember laying in the hospital bed, and they kept trying to give me Subutex. And I would not take it because in my mind, I'm thinking that I'm going to go into an instant withdrawal because, I had been using this entire day, even in this hospital. And I'll never forget it. The second day, a nurse came in, and she's like, baby, I just need you to take this medicine so you can be okay for your baby. And I remember rolling over, and I took it, and I was scared as hell that I was about to instantly go into something worse. But within, half an hour, I'm walking down to the nursery, and I feel a whole lot better. And I go in there, and, when a baby is born addicted, they give them 24 hours to rate their withdrawals to see if they qualify for being on a medicine to help them through their withdrawal. And so like I said, he's got jaundice, so he's under a blue light. And the second best thing besides the medicine is, skin to skin to help them get through that. I couldn't even give him skin to skin because he's under that light, and he's under that light just screaming in agony. And that is what really changed me because, like, I'm standing there trying to hold his finger, and I remember myself trying to walk away because I couldn't bear to see him in that much pain. And I did this to him. I did this to an innocent child, a perfect child that did nothing to nobody. My actions have physically hurt somebody that doesn't deserve it. And so I'm telling myself, like, what are you walking away for? You don't get to walk away so you can be comfortable, so you don't have to deal with this, what you did to him. And so I remember just going back and forth, and I just stood there and I cried, and I'm holding his finger. And from that moment on, I told myself, I'm like, well, the only way I can make this up to him is to be a person. He doesn't ever have to see me like my kids have seen me. I can be there for him his entire life. I may have made the beginning of his life hard, but the rest of his life can be amazing. And I didn't leave his side since. I wouldn't leave the hospital unless I went to treatment in my groups. My treatment center actually allowed me to come back. So I am forever grateful for them because if they didn't, I don't think that I would have been able to do it either. Um, I know that while I was there, because I was, working so hard to get clean and get my resources together and get on my feet, I would like fall asleep in the nursery holding him, and they called Children's Services on me and had them drug test me, which I was clean, and I remember that pissing me off pretty bad. But after I got out the hospital, I found out somebody called me and asked me if it was true that my sister died, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm in McDonald's line with my kids, getting them some food, and I got clean in October, and here it is January. So, um, I go straight to the hospital because nobody had identified her. And I asked them, I'm like, I was told that my sister was here, that she passed away. And I remember them going back, and it was taking a long time. And that's when it hit me that it was true. And my kids were at my legs. And I remember my mom calling me, and she said, the first thing she says is, I'm so sorry, baby. And I dropped to my knees, and my kids are hugging me. And the nurses come out and get me. They're watching my kids. They take me back there to identify her. And she had an abscess on her arm so big that it popped. And they told me that the smell from it was pretty bad, so I had to wear a mask at that time. You know, we masks weren't a thing then.
Yeah.
But and I have OCD, so I obsess about people dying or me dying. Like I'm afraid that I'm gonna die or my loved ones are gonna die, and death doesn't sit right with me at all. So the moment I walked through that door, and the smell is unforgettable, but when they went to uncover her face and the way her eyes were looking at me, I remember dropping and taking off running. I couldn't do it. And then they're calling me because they're asking me, well, where do you want her body transferred to? And I'm just like, where? Because she's not technically my sister. She's my best friend from addiction. And I'm freshly clean. It's like, I can't handle all this. Where is her loved ones? Like, where's her family? She had a baby father husband at the time. Where is he? Like, I can't handle this. I don't know what to do. But I stayed sober through it, but it hit me. She had pneumonia, and when I was still using, I remember her going missing for days, and I'm like, where is she? Is she okay? Like, I can't find my sister. And I heard back that they had found her on the side of the road and that she was in the hospital. So I was up there with her. Well, I had went to my drug dealer's house to get some drugs, and I was going to take her some up there because I know she's withdrawing. But instead, he wants to follow me up there, my drug dealer. I'm like, and I fought and fought with him not to come up there. He goes up there and tells her, well, if you need anything, just come see me when you get out of here. Well, what does she do? She takes her IVs out and she leaves. And she never goes and picks up her medication to finish, taking care of the pneumonia. And me and him get into it, and she did it all for nothing because he didn't even give her drugs. So she let the pneumonia go off so bad that it turned into raging pneumonia and it killed her. And that is a part of how I stayed clean too, because I'm just like, that can't be me. And I know that that's
It
what
it almost shows that it's not just overdosing as a way that you could die. That
Mhm.
shows that how much this is breaking down your body actually,
Yep.
because you're like, well, she didn't even overdose and she died, and I
Right.
can easily die from one of these overdoses.
Yeah.
So I can see why that like sticking with you more, because you're more conscious of death now as someone that close to you.
Right.
So did you ever get into any kind of meetings or anything like that, or was it all just like cold turkey?
I got into meetings. I was going to 3-hour groups 3 times a week. I ended up with a sponsor. And I just like from there, I was living with my mom. Any resources I could get and any support I could get, I was taking. Um, I started I started working at Burger King, and I had a friend that helped. She bought my car, and I just would make the payments back to her, and that helped me with transportation. And I started like wanting more, so I started looking for better jobs because like I'm huge with whatever I want, I'm going to get it one way or another. I believe that I was meant for more. And so I started having issues at Burger King anyways, and they fired me because they didn't finish the schedule. So I thought that I was only scheduled these certain days. And I try to explain that to him, like, that's not my fault. I take shifts. I come to all my shifts. That's not in me, and you know that, but whatever. And right after that, I get a job at a clinic here. And it was originally supposed to be for a community health worker for the MAP program, which is, the medicated assistant.
Treatment, yeah.
Yeah, and they had me go through all the motions and just to tell me I didn't get the position. So I went to HR and I threw a fit, and so they ended up putting me at the front desk. Well, I think I was there a month, and the lady that they hired instead of me for the MAP position didn't work out. So they took me over there, and I started that position. But I realized quickly that that wasn't, I thought that God put me through my addiction and everything I've been through to, work around addiction and recovery as a career. And I realized quickly that it's not for me. I had people that would try to smoke crack around me, and I've had to like yank them out of my car. Like, I've had people that thought, like, because I would go to the jails and I would get them signed up for programs and go talk to their POs to see about getting them, out of jail and into a treatment facility. And people, because they knew me, like maybe the job could be for me, but not in my own town, because they thought that I was still the same person and that I was going to go into the jail and sneak them drugs and do this and that. And then they would get pissed when I wouldn't do that, or if I'm calling their PO to tell them, hey, well, she was supposed to go to treatment, but she ran from me. Now you're mad at me and I'm doing my job. I
Yeah.
told you from the beginning, I'm not that person, and I have to make a living for me and my children. I'm not going to just let you do what you want to do. That wasn't the agreement. So I eventually started, doing things towards my own business. I started doing nails. I started like making these super cool candles and wax melts and skincare, and it just was starting to get heavy. Doing all of it plus working, and with the mental load that my career was giving me, just like I would cook extra dinner for clients and go drop it off to them, even though they get food stamps, but I know that they're selling them. I would still do things like that. And then I remember I come back from a surgery, and that client that I was going up and beyond for told my supervisor, well, I want to switch caseworkers because she's a bitch. Because I told you not to call me on the weekends and at 11 o'clock at night asking for rides and this and that. I'm establishing boundaries, but now I'm a bitch. So that was it for me. My boss has never dealt with addiction ever, but she was constantly on my case on how I dealt with things, because she's like, you can't be that blunt and straightforward. And I'm just like, so I'm supposed to just kiss their ass and tell, sugarcoat it and make them think that what they're doing is okay. I think I know a little more from,
And you don't enable them. You feel
yeah.
it's enabling their behavior.
Yep. And, my boss was harassing me, getting on my social media, zooming in on my pictures, trying to bring stuff up. I'm like, I'm done. I'm just done. So I told myself I was never going back. I pursued my business more. We've been to New York. Our stuff is on, Walmart's website, Amazon, just a lot of places. I've been working really hard on that. But
You can you can talk about it. Where can we find it on Amazon?
I'm actually, like, right now I have it paused on Amazon, but on Walmart you can find it, and I'm on TikTok Shop. I do have a website.
I'll put the website in the bio, so anybody that's watching or listening, the website will be right underneath the description for you to check out some of your shit.
Okay. I also, like, my goal with my business is, so my business name is Recovery Room Nails and Beauty. The goal, and it's been working out pretty well, is to donate a percentage of profits to treatment centers and homeless shelters. An issue I found while being in treatment was that once you start getting your life together, like, when you go through addiction, you end up getting separated with your kids, or your kids taken. It's just you. So now you're getting your life together, and It's only you start working, and then Job and Family Services takes your Medicaid away because it's just you, and now you can't afford your treatment. And I just wanted to help people because that's not fair. It's not. And it's like the government puts you in a situation where you just can't win. You can't get off your feet. You can't do better for yourself. And so that's where the idea to donate a percentage of profits to treatment centers came from. It's helped me bring people together. People, I recover out loud through my business as well to help people that are suffering in silence. I've had so many people come to me um, and want my help, my advice, my leeway, just support because people are sharing my business, but then they see the underlying mission of my business and who I really am. I've even had somebody in New York ask me, they're like, I don't know if I would, willingly tell people or name your business this because it might, push people away. And I'm not gonna lie, I got an attitude, and I'm like, well, then that's good because I don't want them type of people around me. Like
Yeah.
that's not the vision for my business. I have a certain audience that I'm going for. My business is not just about money. So if it pushes people away when it comes to money, but it's bringing other people in that needs their lives saved, then my business is doing exactly what it needs to do then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I like that you're not like trying to hide and push down what happened because all that happened to make you who you are today.
right. Yeah.
And by pushing that down and not recovering out loud, and I understand why people suffer in silence. I suffered in silence. I'm sure you suffered in silence. We're not getting high out loud. We're definitely, keeping that close to the chest. And you know what I mean? So it would be different if you were an addict and you would name your business something that's not you wouldn't have done that if you were still in addiction. You wouldn't have named
Right.
it recovery. And I think it's a testament to, anybody out there that has an idea, wants to be creative, wants to try something new that you can dive into. You can get into it as long as you're clean and you have the right mindset and you have the right goals. Because if the goal is to just make enough money to get high again, then it's not going to be a successful thing, in my opinion.
Yep. Um, that's very true. Now, it's funny how, things come full circle because, my community health worker position, I had a community health worker and she had a huge impact on my life. And then I turned around and I took her position. And now I actually had years later, so now I'm working a government job helping kids and families with addiction to try to keep the kids and the parents, together and them find recovery and the resources they need so their kids doesn't get taken. And it's like I had that done for me, and now I'm doing that. No, I didn't go looking for this job because, like I said, I told myself I never wanted to work in addiction recovery
Yeah.
anymore, but they really wanted me to. They said I was the only one qualified to do it. So I took the position. So right now I'm doing my business and doing that. And I just want to say that because I feel like people made it seem like once I got sober that my life was going to be rainbows and sunshine and everything was going to be great and smooth sailing. And I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but that is the farthest from the truth. And I don't want anybody to, go into recovery thinking that and expecting that because I don't want their hopes to be let down. Like, yes,
You'll
it's
get it for 6 months. The first 6 months, you got that pink cloud over top, and everything is sunshine and rainbows.
yes.
That, that pink cloud's got to burst, and once it
Yep.
does, you got to make sure you have the tools to
Mhm.
handle real life shit outside of treatment, IOP, because now you don't have to go to IOP 3 days a week, and
Right.
basically it's up to you to stay sober, stay clean,
Yep.
and to be completely sober for the first time, really, in your adult life.
Right.
It's a totally different mindset you gotta have.
It's gonna get real. As you can see, life's been beating my ass. But are you gonna? What are you gonna do with that? Are you gonna keep going? Because life is gonna be hard, whether you're sober or you're still using. But I mean, what? How are you going to deal with it? How are you gonna? What are you gonna do moving forward? Because I mean, I could go on for days on what I've been going through. Like I get discriminated against when it comes to housing. We got me and my family got uprooted, and just we were homeless for a while because our landlord kicked us out because of my background. She says she watches the house because I'm a prostitute and this and that, and I'm married now, so my husband wasn't having that. And it's like I was really lucky because my husband knows all of my story. He knows my body count. He knows I was a prostitute. He knows, I shot up. He knows that at a point I had hepatitis. Like, and he just loved me through it. And I'm like, I always tell him, like, you must be fucking crazy. Because I don't think I could have did it if the roles were reversed. But I mean, he took a chance on me, and
So he's a normie then. He's never been in addiction before.
No.
That's wild.
I know, right? That would scare the shit out of me. Like, but I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think I'm a great wife. Like, I'm an uplifting wife. Together, we've come so far. We've built a lot. And even though things are hard, like the world is hard, but even through that, like me and him are hand in hand, and we don't really fight. We don't go through it. Like we've been together. Well, so he's the one I would run from when I got pregnant, and finally I just gave in. He's always been trying to be Captain Save a Ho, I guess. But it worked out, and he's played a huge role in helping me heal. He's played a huge role in helping me trust people again, especially men. And sometimes I feel bad because I'm looking at him sideways, like, what are you really here for? What could you possibly want with me and my background? And I'm just waiting for you to leave or beat me up or whatever. He doesn't raise his voice to me. He doesn't raise a hand to me. My kids get to see a healthy relationship. The man has to stay up sometimes all night and then turn around and get up and go to work after cradling me because I'm having a full-blown panic attack. He goes through it because my mental health, I'm trying to work through it and I'm trying to heal, but he stays patient and calm and loving.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you came on and told your story because, I do this so people can feel comfortable to tell their story and recover out loud. Right. Not everybody. Some people even come on here and they won't share it or post their story because they don't want people that they know in being clean to know about their past.
Right.
People that recover out loud, they're the ones that are like, no, watch my story because it's a testament to who you are today. Because people always say, what if you could go back and you could get $1 million today, or you can go back to 12 years old and know everything you know today? Which would you rather do? And I'll take the $1 million because all of that stuff that happened to me in my 20s, because I got sober at 30, I got clean at 31, I got sober at 33. Because I was clean for like a year and sober, and then like at 13 months I drank again, and that took me on a 9-month bender of drinking. And then my wife and I got sober together on the same day, because we were just like tired of drinking at that point, and like fuck it. And I was 3 years away from my pills because I was addicted to pills for a decade. So to go through all my 20s, I needed to learn all these lessons to make me who I am at 36 now. Right. Like, be the person I am today without all that hardship and going through something hard. Because, like, just like you said, it's not rainbows and sunshine in sobriety. Like, my dad just passed recently, and I had to get through that grief. And I'm still grieving to this day. But I haven't gotten high or drank over it because that's not going to make him come back.
Right.
I won't get to see him again unless I overdose. Then I'll get to see him again. Right. So, and I was addicted to pills, and now they're putting fentanyl on those pills. and it scares the shit out of me, a relapse, because I don't know what I'd be getting on the street.
Right.
So that definitely is a good thing. Not, it's like fentanyl's not a good thing, but it's a good thing to me that I'm scared.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to do that. I don't want to put my body through that again, because the withdrawals, it's not fun to kick. It's not fun. It's one of the longest 7 to 10 days of your life. And when you can kick successfully and you can stick with it, that's like, holy shit, I'm 10 days clean.
Right.
I'm not even string 2 days together in in addiction.
Yeah.
So, thank you for coming on here and being so candid and open. Like, I know it's not easy to do that.
Yeah. The last thing real quick I want to say before I go is no matter what you go through, don't let that determine like you being a mean and nasty person. I've had everybody almost that I've known in my life just screw me over, do some really unspeakable things to me, and instead of being a negative, nasty, mean person, I decided to take it and use it and be a kind person and be an angel to others and be supportive and kind and welcoming. I didn't let that turn me into a miserable, mean person. So just be kind to others because you never know what they're going through. They need you.
Yep. That's a perfect way to end this. Thank you again, Tatiyana. I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
All right, see you.
See ya.